And gentlemen, I want to thank you for your service. As a matter of fact, there's something I stated to Secretary Carter when he testified last time, where I know a number of us have had a lot of criticisms with some of the Obama administration's foreign policy and national security. But one area where I want to commend the president is the quality and character of the men and women he has been nominating that have become before this committee for confirmation to lead our military. And I think the four of you exemplify that quality and character, and I just want to commend you for that. Part of the reason, and the chairman has already touched on it, is the frank and honest views that you have been given this committee and others since your confirmations and your important positions leading the men and women in uniform of our nation. And I want to commend you on that as well. General Milley, when you were here a couple months ago, you talked about the issue, and you already restated it, of a near-peer, full-spectrum threat in terms of a conflict. If we had to address that, you stated that the U.S. Army would be at high military risk to meet, and you mentioned again, to meet our national security strategy. Do you continue to hold that view? And then I'd like to have each of the other service chiefs here give us your assessment of where your service is in terms of risk. I thought it was remarkable. I thought it was courageous of you to say that. The press didn't pick up on it, but the fact that the Chief of Staff of the Army was saying high military risk is pretty remarkable. And I just want each of the service members, in terms of a full spectrum conflict, the ability to meet that for our nation's security. Where are we in terms of risk for your service?
Thank you, Senator. My assessment remains the same. Just as a reminder, what does it mean? When I'm using that term, I'm talking about the ability to accomplish the military tasks assigned to Army units, the ability to do it on time, and the ability to do that at an acceptable level of cost, expressed in terms of casualties, troops,
right,
killed and wounded. But I maintain my same assessment.
High military risk.
That's correct.
Admiral Richardson.
Sir, I concur with General Milley, and I've sort of forbidden my team to use the word risk because it's become so overused that you start to lose a sense of what that means. But it's exactly as General Milley described. If we get into one of those conflicts, we'll win. It's going to take a lot longer than we'd like. It's going to cost a lot more in terms of dollars and in casualties.
General Neller.
Senator, in short, I agree. We build a force that's been focused on a counterinsurgency fight, and while we've been doing this effectively, our potential adversaries have recapitalized and from the ground up build a force that has very significant capability that grows every day. And so we're in the process now of getting ourselves back to where and looking at those capabilities we need to match that up. So would we win? Yes, we would win, but I would associate myself that it would take longer, and I think the cost would be higher.
So you're putting the Marine Corps at high military risk as well?
If we had to do, based on the contingency plans that were one major contingency and then a near simultaneous of another one at the near simultaneous of a second one, yes.
General Goldfein.
Sir, that's the key for this discussion, which is ready for what? And what we're all, I believe, talking about is if the guidance tells us that we have to be simultaneously ready to defeat a near-peer adversary in an anti-access, anti-area denial environment, a near-peer, while at the same time imposing cost and deterring another adversary, while at the same time ensuring a safe, secure, reliable nuclear enterprise, while at the same time defending the homeland to the level that it will be required, then we're at high risk. But you've got to walk down that line.
Right, but that's what we expect of you. That's your mission. Let me just end by mentioning, we talk a lot about cost. General Milley mentioned it. You know, I know some of you in the Army and in the Marine Corps, the book by T.R. Fehrenbach is still given to our infantry officers to read, This Kind of War. Can you talk a little bit, just when you talk about costs, maybe this is for General Milley and General Neller, When we're sending less ready units into a near-peer fight, we talk about costs. It sounds like dollars and cents. What is it? Relate that to this kind of war. Relate that to the first summer in 1950 in Korea. The costs were dead Americans in the thousands. Isn't that correct?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the cost is, the butcher's bill is paid in blood with American soldiers for unready forces. And we have a long history of that. Kasserine Pass, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Task Force Smith in the Korean War. And it goes all the way back to Bull Run. Lincoln thought he was going to fight a war for 90 days. The wars are often thought to be short when they begin. They're not. They often thought to cost less than they end up costing, and they end up with outcomes and take turns that you never know. It's a dangerous thing, and the best thing I know of is to ensure that you have forces that are sized, trained, manned, equipped, and very, very capable to first prevent the war from starting to begin with, and then once it starts, to win and win fast and win decisively. And that's the most humane thing to do when you're engaged in combat. Otherwise, you're expending lives that I don't think are necessary. In the Korean War, the book you're referring to, in that war, Task Force Smith, 21st Infantry Regiment, was alerted out of Japan, went forward to the peninsula on relatively short notice, and they were essentially decimated. And it wasn't because they were bad. It wasn't because they were incompetent. The battalion commander was an experienced World War II guy. It was because they had, two 90-millimeter recoilless rifles. Their mortars didn't work. Their ammo wasn't done. The training wasn't done. They weren't properly equipped. They weren't in great shape. They were doing occupation duty in Japan. They were sent into combat, into harm's way, unready, and they paid for it. And tens of thousands of others paid for it in those early months, the first 6 months of Korea. It's not a pretty picture. Readiness matters. Reps at training centers matters. Equipment matters. Personnel fill matters. And to do otherwise for us at this table is the ultimate sin, to send someone into combat who's unready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that's a